hydrangea is called Fuji Waterfall, F-U-J-I Waterfall. It was discovered in Japan by the plant explorers. It was marketed by Ted Stevens at Nurseries Caroliniana. I bought it many years ago when he used to bring plants to Plantasia and introduce them to all of us. It has become a showstopper. It's a mix, as you can see, in the world of the lace caps. It blooms profusely and it repeat blooms. I will get blooms off of this all summer into the fall. It is in a location which is interesting to me because I have friends that also have it. They have it in much more shade and they do not get the volume of bloom that I get from this. This plant gets midday sun and then it gets some direct hot afternoon sun, and I think the light is part of what kicks this plant into much more bloom. So the trick with hydrangeas is to get them in light. Do not keep them in dark shade, but make sure that they're hydrated. You know, the more sun that beats on their leaves, the more evaporation and the more water they need. But do not hesitate to put a hydrangea in a little more light rather than less. Now, the interesting thing about this plant is that you can go up to Ted Stevens. He's in North Augusta, South Carolina, with his nursery up there. He also does online ordering now. But I also found this hydrangea one time when I was shopping at Whole Foods, and they frequently bring hydrangeas in. Oddly enough, they'll bring them in at holiday time for people to use for holiday decorations and to give as gifts. They called this hydrangea Shooting Star, and it frankly is awfully close to the Fuji Waterfall. So it's another option to keep an eye out for. This grouping of hydrangeas here, and you can tell that their leaf is very different from the traditional hydrangea. It's matte finished, it's smaller, well, a little smaller. It just has a different type of leaf. It is in the world of Hydrangea arborescens as opposed to the Hydrangea macrophyllus, which we're used to. It is, these are cultivars of our native hydrangea. Arborescens is actually native to the southeast, and it's interesting because you cut this hydrangea back to the ground really anytime you want, because it blooms on new wood, not on old wood. So all this growth that you see here is brand new this spring. It's just starting to grow and put on its flowers. It blooms later than the traditional hydrangeas, and it's typically, I believe, almost always available in whites. And Annabelle is a cultivar, Improved Annabelle is a cultivar, Invincibelle is a cultivar. There are lots of different varieties of the Arborescens hydrangea. They will take a little more sun, and they're allowed to be cut back hard. These were cut literally to within 3 inches of the ground, and all of this is new growth. This is your classic southern hydrangea with these rich, deep blue flowers. It was purchased, I frankly don't remember the name, it's a very old hydrangea, but it was purchased probably as something like a Nico blue. I can't swear to that, but it was always a blue hydrangea plant. So you can play around with that, try to get a bluer hydrangea by putting a product like aluminum sulfate around the base of the plant multiple times during the year. But it's tricky to change the color of hydrangeas once your soil chemistry is what it is. It's almost better in some ways to just embrace what they wind up blooming as. This is a plant that, again, was marketed years ago at Plantasia. It's the first time I saw it and heard about it. It's called Diecroa febra something, F-E-B-R-I-G, and then I can't remember. I think it's G-U-A, febrigua. It is referred to as the evergreen hydrangea. Its leaves are evergreen. Its bloom, as you can see, Starts out as, these are actually seed pods. This is the spent bloom, and these seed pods will turn a rich, beautiful blue, which will ornament the plant all summer into the fall. This is the flower on the plant, so you can see the sort of association with hydrangea. It starts out with these clusters of tight buds, opens up into this frilly blue color. It's always bloomed blue in my garden. I don't know if that has to do with chemistry or anything else, but it's a sweet plant. I cut it back pretty hard every year, and I seem to get better bloom from it than a lot of my friends who have it, who don't cut it back very hard. But it's a very pretty 2.5, 3 foot tall max, shrub that blooms and gives interest all summer, spring into summer. This plant is called Edgeworthia chrysantha, and it is related to the Daphne, but I have found it to be a much stronger, hardier plant than Daphne odora. The interesting thing about it is right now it's in full leaf. It loses all its leaves in the wintertime, and at the ends of every branch it develops a bloom. And that bloom starts to form in November, December, just as the leaves fall off. It enlarges to about the size of a quarter, maybe a half a dollar. It's got cream and white in the flower as it opens to full beauty in February. It is extremely fragrant, as you might expect from a relative of the Daphne family. It is one of the most elegant shaped, formed, leaved, green shrubs in a garden. And it's in a filtered light situation, and I would encourage people to keep an eye out and incorporate this into their filtered light areas of a garden. Its maximum height appears for me to be somewhere around 5 feet. This has been in here for about 6 or 7 years. I don't think it's going to get a lot taller. This is a grouping of hydrangeas that I've planted over the years. No particular names, no particular reason. I just wanted more hydrangeas. They're in filtered light under all these oak trees. And as you can see, they're blooming different colors, and that has to do with the soil chemistry. I've not tried to make them one color or another. Typically, a lot of the blue hydrangeas will start out white, and then they gradually turn blue. But in the background here, a plant I wanted to make particular note of is an understory tree that people should really seek out for their gardens. It's a type of dogwood called Empress of China. It was introduced to us by Carolina Nurseries years ago, sold at Plantasia many years ago. It's proven to be a beautiful understory tree. It is evergreen. It loses its leaves right as it gets the new leaves in the late spring. It blooms, as you can see, way after our native dogwoods, but it has that small, lovely, layered white bloom of our dogwood trees. So keep an eye out for it. I actually found some at Lowe's last year, and even though I already had one, I had to buy another one because it is such a lovely understory tree.